We are talking Cobra Kai Season 2. Yes, this is the second season to the follow-up from the original Karate Kid movies, once again starring Ralph Macchio and William Zabka. So, in Season 1, in case you haven't seen it, I'll give you a brief, it's kind of focuses more on Cobra Kai as Johnny Lawrence kind of reforms the Cobra Kai and wins the tournament. So now we have the aftermath of that, and it focuses on really the return of John Kreese, played by Martin Kove, the kind of the sensei from the original movie. And he's back because now Cobra Kai has had a kind of taste of success, worming his way back into Lawrence's good graces, and ultimately trying to kind of take over Cobra Kai now it is on top again. And the continuing rivalry between Daniel LaRousso and Johnny Lawrence. And also the kind of kids under their employ, and they have warring kind of dojos, so to speak, and it ultimately just follows that kind of path again. Now there's no tournament in this this season. It's kind of which I'm kind of glad about, to be fair. I think it's actually gone down a little bit more of a. I thought it might just do the kind of the same thing, and this time LaRusso's kids might win, etc. But it doesn't. It does have a kind of a a slightly different kind of storyline, although it does kind of hit some sort of like expected bumps along the road. So what do I think? I think this series is fantastic. I feel it's a little bit of a shame it has come out, the second season came out this same month as the 1-2 punch of Avengers Endgame and Game of Thrones, the final season, in April 2019, because I just think it's got kind of swallowed up in the kind of the cultural landscape. And season 1, although it wasn't a huge, it wasn't a massive splash, I do think it got a lot of cult love, and I think this one's kind of got a little bit stomped over. But it's still a continuation of the same kind of quality that you would expect in the kind of the first the series. To be fair, I feel it's a worthy success. I don't feel there's really a massive dip in quality. I feel this second season gets a little bit sillier, if I'm honest. I feel it's not quite as dramatic as the first season, and I wasn't quite, some of the character journeys I wasn't quite buying quite as much. I really like the inclusion of a couple of new characters, primarily this kind of new bad girl, Tori, her name is, and she's kind of like the on the Cobra Kai side, and the potential new love interest for Miguel, who's our kind of our kind of like POV character, our protagonist from the first season. And she's kind of quite a wild card, seems to be seemingly quite unhinged, but not entirely unsympathetic either. And she has quite a good little rivalry going with Daniel LaRusso's daughter, and I thought that was quite good. There seems to be a little less kind of like fighting in this season compared to the last one. It seems that way, but the final episode is essentially an all-out brawl between the students of Cobra Kai and Daniel LaRusso's Miyagi dojo. So yeah, that was kind of quite fun, admittedly, but maybe a little bit OTT, but fun nonetheless. I feel this season definitely focuses a lot less on the Miguel character, who I think was the MVP of the last season, which is a little bit of a shame. It focuses more on Robby, who is Daniel's student, but also Lawrence's actual son. And I've got to say, I wasn't overly keen on his character, if I'm honest. I thought he just comes across as a little bit smarmy, if you ask me, and a little bit too much of he's a real good guy. I don't know. His character doesn't ring quite true to me. So it's not quite as interesting as Johnny Lawrence's pupil Miguel. There's plenty of kind of like pop culture references again, and some quite kind of like funny scenes, especially as Johnny Lawrence tries to get himself up to date with a bit of technology, things like internet dating, stuff like that, and smartphones. It's quite fun, and there's some quite kind of fun scenes. And there's kind of quite a lot of throwbacks to the 80s as well. There's a kind of an 80s kind of roller disco, things like that. And quite a fun little dream sequence that Johnny Lawrence has as well, which I also really appreciated. one of the things I maybe don't like so much with this series, and it repeats a kind of theme from the first season, where you almost have Lawrence and LaRousso a couple of times through the season almost kind of like put aside the differences and start kind of seeing more eye to eye, for it to immediately go back to the status quo the next episode. It did it in the first season, and then it does it again in this season. And I don't know how many times you can kind of rinse and repeat that theme. The other thing I have is Martin Cove's character, Crease. I knew exactly where that plot line was going, and I can guess where the third season is going to go as well. To me, it was no real surprise, and I don't know if I completely buy the final episode in regards to Crease's kind of storyline. I feel I'm a little bit disappointed Miguel was backbenched a little bit on this season, because he was my favourite character from the first season. There's still some fantastic kind of like sort of fight sequences, some kind of like cutting kind of social commentary on certain aspects, and some of the new characters are kind of really fun, and some of the kind of the lesser characters from season 1, like Dimitri, kind of get a little bit more chance to shine in season 2 as well, and I kind of like them, but it's very good. I feel the quality is more or less there, the same as the first season, but not quite as good. And I'm not a huge fan of it, kind of maybe just repeating the same kind of things. Even though the storyline is a little different, I still feel some of the kind of the themes here are kind of a rinse and repeat to a certain degree. It does end on a bit of a cliffhanger, and I'm always nervous because you never know if these things are going to get picked up for another season, and I always think, sometimes it's kind of worth maybe finalising things just in case. But nonetheless, I'm hoping there is a season 3, and I'll give this one a 6 out of 10. I do think it's a solid season, and in quality-wise and filmmaking terms, I feel it's as good, but some of the kind of the plot elements I didn't think were quite as strong as the first season. So 6 out of 10 for me. Have you seen it? What did you think of it? Leave me a comment, and I'll look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.